People always talk about how there's not enough tournaments and there's not enough money in the sport to make it like an actual job. And I think a lot of people say that, but then they're not willing to go and play the small tournaments on the weekend when there's not bigger tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if this is your job and it's your full-time job, then you shouldn't have, at a normal job, you don't randomly have every other week off. You know what I mean? So
Right.
from perspective, like obviously I have an absolute blast traveling and playing wherever. So that's kind of why I do it. But it's also just like this, in order to make this more professional, like you have to have that consistency to it as well.
All right, we're live. While we're waiting on some people, tell me about where you're at right now.
We are somewhere just east of Dallas, Texas, I think. I left St. Petersburg on let's see, all the days are starting to blend together already. On Monday, I think Monday morning, and got somewhere in the panhandle of Florida by Monday night. I slept at a rest area in my car. Decided Tuesday night I was gonna get a hotel so I could knock out a bunch of other work. So we drove as far as we could, and this is where we landed. So I think I'm between like Dallas and Tyler, Texas.
That's probably the most volleyball thing you could have said, sleeping in my car at a rest stop. All right. Today, we're lucky enough to have one of our good buddies, one of our good coaches, one of what I think is the up-and-coming big blocker on the AVP Tour, Mr. Logan Weber. If you guys have ever come to a camp with us before, there's a very good chance that you've seen Logan. Logan, how many camps have you done with us now?
I think 5 or 6.
5 or 6, yeah. And then a couple announcements from me. We have our camp in April, which has actually already sold out. We've got all those spots filled. If you are interested in joining our April camp, we are thinking about expanding because we already have a pretty large wait list. But if you are interested in joining us for April, make sure you email us at support@betteratbeach.com or send us a DM or something along those lines so that we can get you added to that list. So if we decide to expand, you're one of the first people to hop on that train. And Logan will be joining us again in April. So that'll be a little surprise for you. Get to know him a little bit more in person. Other than that, a couple other announcements we have are we are now offering weekend clinics. Logan might be joining us for some of those all after, but we're already going to San Francisco at the end of January. We have a couple of other spots like Salt Lake City, I think Westchester, New York, Ozarks, where we have already booked up weekends. So if you're interested in having us come out to your location, no matter where it is, send us an email and we can get you a list. We're trying to fill up as many weekends as we can leading up to season. We're having a lot of people asking us because the only camp that we have advertised right now is for our camp in April. We are hoping that we will be able to open up more camps, but we're waiting on the AVP schedule. I think just like every other athlete, it's starting to get a little interesting. I think we're all just looking forward to what the season has, and the sooner that schedule comes out, the sooner that all of us will be able to prepare for our summers. So, Logan, I'll go ahead and start and introduce you. I think I met you 4 years ago, maybe.
We pretty much made the exact same timing of our moves out to California, I think.
Yeah, we might have both gotten into California. I know I got there in 2018, October, and I think you were either just behind me or just before me, and you're actually living with Mark at the time, which was really cool. So obviously that was my first connection when I moved out here. So kind of having you out there already was pretty cool. And one thing that I really enjoy about you is, and it's kind of funny, I think this about you and Andy. I think of you and Andy as very, very similar people, not only because you're big up and coming blockers, but you also both have this quality about you where it doesn't feel like you kind of discriminate on players by any means. I know when I first moved out to California, it was hard for me to find practices, and you were one of those people that every single time I texted you or every single time that we needed somebody, if you weren't already playing, you said yes every single time. And so from me to you, a little thanks has to go there because you made my transition to California, especially with finding practices, a lot easier. Yeah, and then since then, you've been playing pretty much every single day you can. And then this last season, you absolutely crushed it with Evan, winning, I think, 4 AVP Next Golds, giving you some automatic berths into some AVP events, which I'll definitely let you dive a little bit deeper into in the future. On this conversation. But, the first thing I kind of just want to let you introduce yourself and where you came from, where you started, because I think a lot of people who listen to us or follow us are where we were maybe when we were in our early 20s, where we might have been doing very well in our own little pond that we lived in, but we were kind of wondering if we had the ability to take that step out of it and kind of jump into bigger waters. So, Logan, you want to introduce yourself and kind of let us know where you're from and what that journey looked like?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my beach volleyball journey, if you can call it that, began actually with my sister. So I have a sister who's about 2 years older than me. She started playing volleyball when she was in probably 7th grade or something like that. And I'm from Grand Rapids, Michigan originally, and in Michigan we have absolutely no boys volleyball at all. At least at the time we don't. It's slowly starting to grow. It's actually I think technically a high school sport now, which is cool for me to see, and kind of like be jealous of all of these guys who get to actually play volleyball in Michigan in high school. That's pretty sweet. But yeah, I just kind of started, I guess, learning the game, watching my sister play indoor, and being dragged all over the Midwest to go to her club tournaments, and which I absolutely hated at the time. But I think that's kind of where I first started or got introduced to volleyball, at least. From there, I think I was maybe a sophomore in high school, and her and I played a couple of juniors, like co-ed, just like little 5 or 6 team tournaments on the west coast of Michigan. And yeah, just never really stopped after that. I mean, those were just tiny little juniors tournaments, and we'd get beat by the same 2 guys every single weekend because everybody played in the same tournaments up there. The next year I ended up playing with one of those guys instead, and then we would go from juniors to B at the same tournaments, and then men's B to men's A at the same tournaments, and then finally men's double A or triple A, just kind of whatever the highest level is, because that's about the highest level that there typically is in Michigan. And yeah, I just after that I was hooked. I mean, every single day I would just wake up and want to play volleyball. So I played 2 years of indoor club for Carpe Diem Volleyball, which was one of the only club teams in the whole state. So we would drive down to Chicago and Ohio to play our tournaments. And I put a little like 90-second highlight reel together that now I go back and watch it. It's absolutely hilarious. Like, wow, I can't believe I somehow got included at this 90 seconds. I did somehow. I ended up visiting Cincinnati Christian University down in Southern Ohio, and coach took me in after like a little hour-long, I guess you could call it a tryout, and offered me a scholarship right there. And I still remember me and my mom were just shocked. We were like, "Are you really offering me like a scholarship to play volleyball?" We were amazed. So it was I committed right there. I played 4 years at CCU. We had an extremely small team, but we were a super close team. So it was an awesome 4 years. It was also a cool experience because it was such a, I guess, relaxed environment compared to most like Division I indoor schools, that I was actually able to practice in the sand like 2 or 3 days a week in the middle of the indoor season.
Awesome. Did you have a couple teammates that would do that with you?
Occasionally they would come. Nobody that was quite as into it as I was, as you could expect. And also to the chagrin of most of my indoor coaches, who didn't necessarily like the fact that I was showing up post sand practice to our indoor practices, but it just kind of came with the deal at that point. So yeah, I was able to do that the whole time. I was introduced to the Cincinnati beach volleyball community during that time, which has been some of the most influential people, not only in volleyball, but also my entire life. And I think that was when I really fell in love with the whole community aspect of our sport, and the ability of our sport has to really like bring a group of people who never would have met each other before and bring that group together and give them something to bond over. And then, from there, those relationships are able to grow.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think the community aspect of everything, that's almost in every single volleyball player's story. It starts with a passion, and then you're introduced to the community, and then it's just game over from there. You can't get out of it. Real quick, kind of going back to your college days, what position did you play?
I was actually a setter / right side, so I was setting a 6'2" my first 2 years, and I was an outside my last 2 years.
Okay, that explains the whole your ball control, because
I was never.
Yeah, I'm assuming whenever somebody sees your height, if you guys don't know, Logan is, what are you, 6'8", bordering 6'9", maybe. So normally in high school or college, even if you're that tall, especially when you were coming up, normally you're getting stuck in the middle. But seeing your hands and how you can pass and stuff like that, I was like, I'm not here in middle.
Yeah, and it was pretty comical. So on my indoor club team, we basically had 3 guys that had ever picked up a volleyball before, and then we had 4 or 5 guys that their parents just kind of signed them up for it because their older sister or younger sister played. So our best 3 setters were also our best 3 hitters, who were also our best 3 passers. So we ended up running a 3-setter rotation, which I've never seen before and I'd never seen since.
I don't think I've heard of that.
We just kind of did everything. Whoever was either back right or middle right would set, and then we would rotate, and the next person would get to back right or middle right. So
that's phenomenal.
It was an interesting dynamic in club, but it definitely made me do everything. So I'm happy for that.
That's awesome. So at what point did you? So you said you were in Cincinnati, and so was that when you met John Drake and Chris Lewers and those guys, or was it a little bit later?
Nope, that was it. So I still remember the first time I ever went to play at Grandstands, and I was playing Tuesday pickup. And this was in Chris and John's heyday, when they would win every tournament in the Midwest, and they would qualify a couple times. And I was in awe of playing John and Chris. And it's awesome because Chris kind of sets up and runs kind of a twice a week training group with just whoever the top players that want to come. So those sessions were really where I feel like I was able to practice certain skills over just showing up and playing pickup or playing tournaments, because he was very into making sure that we actually got through an hour and a half of drills before just getting into side out stuff, which is, I think, something in a lot of beach volleyball communities, that kind of discipline to be able to just show up with 6 guys and run drills is something that a lot of places are missing. So I'm really grateful for that as well.
Yeah, that's when I hear those 2 names, I've had the pleasure of getting to know. I met Chris first when I was playing on the NVL, and without even meeting him, he allowed me and my partner Skylar McCoy, who I was playing with that season, to just come stay at his house for a week. And then when we ran the camps this past, I've known John for a little bit, but I haven't really ever gotten a chance to know him. And getting to know him this past year when we were in Grandstands running the camp for Better Beach, which you were at, it doesn't surprise me that you fell in love, because if you are in the Cincinnati area, if you are in Ohio and willing to drive, those 2 guys are doing amazing things for that area, and they will definitely do everything they can to kind of help you get set up in the sport. So you're definitely lucky. So when did you decide that it was time to move? Because I think I'm originally from a small town called Chester, Virginia. You were raised in Michigan and then moved to Ohio, which, in case you don't know, are not huge beach communities by any means. But luckily, we both found it. And then we obviously had the same kind of journey at the same time. But when and why did you decide to make the jump out to California?
So I knew pretty early that I wanted to move out and try to play. So I would say my freshman year of college, I started as I believe a sports management major or something like that. And about halfway through my first semester, I was looking into just job prospects and stuff like that, and realized that there's not a lot of remote jobs in the sports management field, if any. And I was taking an intro to accounting class, and I was one of 100 students that actually like enjoyed the accounting process, which sounds really strange. But I was talking with my professor, and he was talking about how many remote and part-time jobs there are in accounting. And so I ended up switching after my first semester to majoring in accounting, strictly because I knew that I wanted to go play and have the freedom to be able to play and practice whenever I wanted to. So I would say it was kind of at that point where I was like, okay, I want to set myself up and put myself in the best situation that I'm able to after I graduate college. So it was pretty much throughout my whole college career that I knew that this was kind of the path that I wanted to take.
That's awesome. And I think a lot of people miss the boat on that. It's really hard. I by no means do I want this to come off as being a knock at beach volleyball players, but a lot of us, just because of the funding of the sport, live paycheck to paycheck. Mm-hmm. And I think that it is important for people to hear about your kind of story and the fact that you planned for this while you're in college. I think that that's one of the things that has really stood out with me about you, is that you've found a way to have a job that isn't in the beach volleyball world, allowing you to still chase that dream. For me, it was teaching. Kind of made sense for me. It allowed me to teach during the teach during the school year, and then I was free during the summers to go play in all my tournaments and everything like that. And it kind of worked. But even when I moved out to California, it got to be a little tough for me, because I was now living paycheck to paycheck. I was coaching as many hours as I could. I was tutoring. I was doing all these things. But, especially for people that are moving out to California, or moving anywhere for that matter, the beach volleyball scene is growing so fast that it doesn't really matter where you put yourself now, as long as you're around a good community and you have good practice partners, coaches, and stuff like that available to you, then you can do it. But I think the preparation beforehand, as far as a career or some way to make some money so that you're not completely stressing out about volleyball, I think that can go a long way.
Yeah, it's pretty comical once I get into kind of the actual how I ended up moving there is gonna flip that a little bit on its head. But
okay.
In the long term, it worked out the way that I thought I did.
Right.
So my senior year, I had this internship lined up out here in Southern California. And I'd had it lined up since maybe May of 2018. I was supposed to move out at the start. I was supposed to move to Hermosa at the start of October. And about a month before I was supposed to move out, the company like reformed itself and got bought out. And I ended up not having my internship that I thought I was going to have for the last like a month before I was supposed to move out. So then I was stuck at like the end of September, or the beginning of September, and I didn't have a place to stay, and I didn't have a job, and I didn't even have a car actually to get myself out there. So at that point, I told myself, I think my date was October 1st. I told myself on October 1st, I'm leaving no matter what, even if I don't have anything set up, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna figure it out. And a couple weeks later, I bought a car from a buddy of mine for like $1,000, and it had an 05 Camry with 260,000 miles on it.
I think I saw that car sitting out in front of Mark's for like 7 months.
for a while, but yep, I got rid of it now, so Mark can stop bugging me about the car. And then a couple of weeks later, I saw a posting on Facebook that Mark had a room available at his place, so I messaged him. I had never met Mark before that, so I messaged him just knowing him as the volleyball player that he was, and got that figured out. And then on my drive out there, I got a call back on just like a random job application that I'd sent in for a company out here. So everything kind of came together within the last week, and I was on my way.
Well, there you go, man. I'm glad you made it out. All right. I want to keep moving along, because I feel like we could talk for 2 hours on here if I let you. But let's go ahead and get into this last year. I think when I first saw you playing, I was obviously, your height and your ball control is something that first stood out. I remember you played one season where you qualified with, I think it was Christian.
Yeah, Christian and I qualified, and then qualified that same year with David Ryan Vandermeer, and a couple times with Ben Vaught as well.
Cool. And so that was your first year qualifying, right? Or had you qualified prior to that?
Nope, that was the first year. David Ryan and I had qualified for that Huntington FIVB 4-star event.
That's right.
We had that experience, but in terms of AVPs, I had never qualified before the start of 2019.
That's still pretty impressive that you were able to qualify 4 times and happened to be, so you qualified 2 times with DR, once with Christian, and then twice with Ben Vaught, or was that what it was?
Ben and I were automatically into the main draw in Manhattan that year, actually. So we didn't qualify, but we played in Manhattan, and then we qualified the next tournament in Chicago.
Gotcha. That's amazing. And then the pandemic hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you were probably a little like, oh man, like all this is kind of going away. But then you ended up teaming up with Evan Corey, who is another youngster that, if you haven't heard that name before, I'm sure he'll be on a podcast in the future. But he is a phenomenal player, and it seemed like you guys kind of just hit it off right away, and not only played really good volleyball, but became like pretty good buddies along the way as well. Kind of let us know how you guys got introduced.
Yeah, so we Evan and I both, we always make the joke that if you take like AVP America points, like the cumulative amount of points, and you take those from 2020, which was kind of the season that didn't happen for most people, we would have like 5,000 more points than anybody, because him and I, every single weekend, him and I would go and play any tournament that we could like break even at, basically, in 2020, because that was his first season out of college, and obviously not having an AVP was, a bummer for him. But we played against each couple tournaments at Grandstands. He beat me once with I think he's playing with Steven Roschitz, and then another time with JD Hamilton. And obviously, like, I knew like he was extremely good at that point. And then I think the first time we ever really talked, Tim Brewster and I went and played a tournament in New Orleans, just like this random tournament in the fall, and stayed with Evan and met his family and stuff. And we decided to play. A first tournament we played was in Cleveland, up at Sandbox. So we won that, and then played those couple tournaments down in Clearwater over the winter. And just never really stopped after that.
That's pretty cool. The thing that stood out to me there, which is something that I've picked up on you from the second that I met you, is that you played every single tournament that you could, which is very difficult to do. Not only from a monetary standpoint, because of all the travel and all the eating, and I'm sure you guys probably found places to stay because you guys know everybody. But I think that's something that especially as you get older, it's hard to do. I know for me, this idea of playing every single tournament that I can just seems exhausting, but it's also something that you have to do in order to see yourself get better. So that's actually one of my goals this year, is to play in as many tournaments as I can. Obviously, I'm 33 now. I'm not I'm not the young buck that I once was, but my body feels almost younger than it ever has. But I think that a lot of people can hear that and can learn from it. And it's just play as much as you can. So it was really cool to see you guys doing that. And then it was even cooler to see the success come afterwards too.
Yeah, I think one quick point as well to wrap that up is, like, people always talk about how there's not enough tournaments and there's not enough money in the sport to make it like an actual job. And I think a lot of people say that, but then they're not willing to go and play the small tournaments on the weekend when there's not bigger tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, if this is your job and it's your full-time job, then you shouldn't have, at a normal job, you don't randomly have every other week off. You know what I mean? So
right,
from my perspective, like, obviously I have an absolute blast traveling and playing wherever, so that's kind of why I do it. But it's also just like this, in order to make this more professional, like you have to have that consistency to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And especially, and I've kind of realized since I moved out to California, if you're not in California and you're the money in California, like CBVAs and stuff like that, isn't very good. But like where we grew up, where like Ohio's, Virginia, even Florida's, like all of those tournaments are actually pretty decent payouts on a pretty normal occasion. I know in Virginia Beach, every single tournament that they run at TVA, which is where I played, was 100% payout for open, which, you know, it might not be advertised too well, and sometimes you're not getting as many teams, but if you're getting 10 teams signed up for that tournament and you win it, then there's a good chance that you and your partner are splitting probably 400, 500, maybe even $600 depending on what the entry fee is. And if you keep doing that, then you're definitely setting yourselves up. Like, I know I had a buddy at one point who now lives down in San Diego, but he used to work for TVA. And there was one summer where I literally played every single tournament I could, and he had to write my checks. And at the end of the summer, he was kind of joking with me, and he was like, "Dude," he's like, "You made more than me this summer." And he worked for them. So it's I do agree with you. You know, it's especially wherever you are, if you can, and you can't complain about how much it costs to travel and stuff like that if you're not putting yourself into those positions, because those little weekend tournaments, if you're able to win them, could pay for your flight. It
Yeah.
could pay for your hotel when you're going to play in the Manhattan AVP. So yeah, it's definitely something to kind of think about, which I'm glad you brought that up, because we do talk about the lack of money a lot, but there are ways to combat it for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so let's keep it going. So now you had, what did you think about your last season on the AVP? Because I mean, you and Evan obviously found that success on AVP Next Golds, and then you got your first like true taste of main draw events. Were you happy? Were you hoping for more?
Well,
What did you think?
it was kind of an interesting, somewhat interesting roller coaster, because going into the first Gold Series AVP Next event, which was New Orleans in June, Evan and I hadn't really done anything that spectacular. In like the 2 weekends before that, we played a pretty decent tournament in San Antonio, and I think we got maybe a third or a fifth. And going into New Orleans, I think we both maybe just thought that it wasn't really meant to be, and that we just were a team that couldn't quite get over the hump. Going into it, we didn't really have any expectations, and I think that's what made that tournament itself so special, is that we really had no expectations going into it. And then to be able to come away with that win, especially in New Orleans, was pretty amazing. And then, I mean, after that, you know, just every time we would win one, we just looked at each other and be like, did we really just do this again? Like, I'm not sure how we just doing this. But Wapaka was awesome for me, because that's been a tournament that I've gone to for a lot of years, just being a kind of like the premier Midwest tournament. So to be able to win that and play Tim and Brian Baumgren in the finals was pretty special moment for me. And then Seaside was an absolute roller coaster, because we got in the Atlanta qualifier on Thursday, and Seaside started on Friday. So to make a long story short, Evan was still in Phoenix, Arizona at 7 a.m. on Friday when we had a noon game in Seaside. But yeah, we somehow ended up pulling it off. I think the coolest thing about all those AVP Next Gold Series events is just like the semis and the finals are such big like events, and it all the people there are there because like they've been to this tournament for, you know, year after year after year, and they're so knowledgeable about their volleyball that it makes those finals like so much fun. I think that the Seaside final is one of the most entertaining, like just awesome experiences that I've been part of.
Yeah, I actually didn't. The only AVP I played in this year was Manhattan, but I was able to go to Seaside and Wapaka for my first time at both of those tournaments. And I'm telling you, these AVP Next Gold events, or these big tournaments that have been running for years, decades even, are amazing. Like, when you talk about the volleyball community and falling in love with it, those are the tournaments that will make you do it. You know, last year I was lucky enough, I played Pottstown, which is one of the biggest grass tournaments you can play. I played Wapaka, which I think it is known as the biggest outdoor tournament in the US. And then Seaside is just unreal. It's in this beautiful beach in Oregon, where you have these coasts that make you feel like you're in Jurassic Park. And then they build up the sand berms, like the big stadium with the sand. It was a pretty cool experience to be there, and It was cool. It was really cool to watch you guys win it too. I'm not gonna lie, I was happy to see it like as the tournament went on, but when I saw you and Evan walk onto the strand or onto the sand that first thing in the morning, I was a little mad. I was like, "Dang it, they
We
actually
made
made
it.
it." Part of me was hoping that it'd be one more team that didn't show up, so that I selfishly might be able to take this thing down. Um, that's cool. But Logan, real quick, I know it's already 11:34. We've been kind of cruising through, but what does the future look like for you? What are some goals that you have for the upcoming season, or maybe for you down the road?
Yeah, well, this upcoming season, I'll be playing all of the AVPs with John Hyden. So everybody watching, you're somewhat the first to know that.
There
So
you
that's
go.
pretty exciting for me to be able to play with somebody who's has that much experience, and hopefully it'll just take that. Obviously, we won't have to be. Hopefully, I'm not sure what the main draws will look like, I guess, but if they're anything like they have been, we shouldn't be in the qualifiers to start the season. So it'll be awesome to just kind of have a different mindset, I think, going into the main draws, because a lot of times when you come through the qualifier or come from like a wild card bid, it's easy to get in there and then just be like, okay, well, hopefully we can win a match. And now you kind of have to evolve that mindset into like, I'm here to win this tournament, not just get in the main draw and maybe win a match. So yeah, it'd be awesome to learn from him. I'm hoping to play in as many FIVB events as I can. John does not want to play any FIVB events, which I kind of considered that going in. But yeah, I'm looking to just build up those FIVB points, so that way in when 2023 comes, which seems like a long way out, but I can put myself in the best possible position to grab the best partner and try to make more of a full-time run on the FIVB. So
I
that's
like it. And then I guess along with that, I guess a main goal would probably be Olympics if everything works out.
yeah. I mean, we've seen especially obviously in the last couple of years, like how quickly people can go from having no FIVB points to being one of the best teams in the world. I think it's really funny. In 2018, they had that Huntington event. It was like an FIVB AVP collaboration thing, and Casey Losick and Garrett Wilson. They ended up qualifying, and we were eating dinner with them before, and they're like, "Yeah, we play some young guys from Norway. We don't really know who they are." And then 2 years later, they've won 15. Those guys from Norway won 15 FIVB tournaments. So yeah, I would love to get to the point where I'm able to play on that top level FIVB.
Do you this is a little off topic from you, but do you know what the current FIVB point system is now? I know they got rid of the star system, so I'm not 100% sure how these work now.
Yeah, so basically there's three different tiers now. I
Okay.
think there's an elite, a challenger, and a futures. So elite, it's 16 teams, no qualifier, just the top 16 teams based on points. Challenger then I think is the next 32 teams, which are kind of like your 3-star level tournaments. And then futures is, I guess, everyone else, but they haven't really announced how that's going to work yet. So
Okay.
there's a lot still up in the air.
Cool. And so assuming, because you played one FIVB last year, right?
Yep.
And then so you at least have some points moving in, and it's crazy. Like from what I've heard in the past, is it's crazy how just some points can be
Right.
super
Yeah.
valuable. So it's good that you got a head start. That's amazing. I know it's already 11:38. I think some people have been leaving a couple questions. So. All right. One of the first ones that I saw is from one of our most consistent listeners. His name's Mark, and it says, "At this stage in your career, what 3 things are you wanting to improve in your skill set?"
I think just overall consistency, I think, is my biggest key right now. I don't think there's any like overall glaring part of my game that I think I couldn't dramatically improve. I think it's just getting to the point where I'm having my best day more than I am right now. Because I think on my best day, I think I'm right up there and can play with just about everybody. It's just making sure that those good days are happening at a higher percentage than they are right now.
Do you have anything that you've done that you found has helped you have those good days more than not? Or is that just
I think the
something?
biggest thing is something we already talked about is just playing volleyball as much as you possibly can, because you learn then like kind of how to get out of those ruts faster, and like what can be like you're okay, I'm not having a good day, here's my absolute go-to, like here's my go-to swing, this is my one big focus when I'm setting, and this is my one big focus when I'm passing, and just trying to have like one like big thing to fall back on all the time, and not trying to be like, I'm not siding out, I need to do something that I've never done before to try to side out. It's just finding that one thing that you do best, and then if the other team's able to beat you and take away what you do best, then so be it. Move on to the next game.
That's a good point. I like that. And I think, Mark, to kind of go in a little bit more to that, is at the level that Logan and myself are playing at, we're always working on the same skill sets that beginners are working on.
Yeah.
Our preseason that is happening right now, it's a lot of pass set and then drills that are helping us get better at those specific skill sets. Very rarely will you see people who are training right now just go out and play. I think a lot of people, especially in California, you see it sometimes, but it's more just to keep the fun in the game. Training every single day and just training can get a little monotonous at times. So sometimes if we do go out, we'll just set up matches. We're just playing today, and maybe it's in a king of the court or a king of the beach format where you kind of flop partners, and it's just meant to get out there and have fun. But I would say for the most part, we're all still working on those skill sets quite a bit. All right, James Hartney, are you planning on returning to West Michigan over the summer?
Yes, not full time, obviously, but I'm actually going to be working a lot this upcoming season with West Michigan, and with Steven Vanderwerp and Pete Goers. They do an awesome job running tournaments up there. So I'm going to come back, help them with some of their clinics, get back and play some of their tournaments as well. Any big stuff, there's hopefully it'll be a couple bigger tournaments that I can get up there too. And I also have a little 2-month-old nephew that I need to get back to sometime this summer. So I will be back there as much as I possibly can.
Congrats on that too. That was pretty recent, right? A couple weeks old?
Yep.
Oh, that's awesome. Happy for you. This is Pam Brandt. She said, I'd love to include you, Logan Weber, in my Who's Who in Volleyball digital magazine that will be coming out monthly soon. So it seems like a cool opportunity for you to talk with her. So Pam, if you don't already follow Logan on Instagram, make sure you give him a follow. Pam, I would suggest reaching out to him on Instagram if you want to set up an interview or something. All right, let's see if we can find one more question for you.
I see this volleyball videos question about Phil down here.
Okay. Is Phil Dahlhauser's favorite up-and-coming player Logan Weber? I've heard Phil ask about Logan several times. What kind of relationship do these studs have? I mean, I know that you've gotten a chance to play with him, and I'm practice against him, and I'm envious. So I think that's a pretty cool story for everybody to hear.
So I spent about 4 or 5 months living in the St. Petersburg, Florida area in 2021. And I was fortunate enough to get lumped in through kind of a mutual friend into Phil's training group over in Orlando. So myself and whoever else, whatever defender I could grab, it was typically Caleb Queckel would drive over to Orlando probably 3 or 4 days a week and train just with Phil, Nick, and their coach, Jason Lockheed, who was their coach at the time. And it was one of the most spectacular experiences I've ever had. I had never really met Phil or Nick before that, and and their coach Jason as well, like just some really incredible people. Extremely welcoming and extremely grateful. Like they would always thank us when we were leaving for like driving the hour and a half to train with them. And Caleb and I would look at each other and be like, "Why are you guys thanking us?" Like we would drive 5 hours to come here, but it was an awesome experience. It was cool to kind of get to know them in such a personal way, as well as being able to train against guys like that on a consistent basis. I think definitely helped Caleb and I both improve our game a ton. yeah, it was pretty special. Those two guys are awesome, and I'm huge fans of them.
Yeah, that's I've gotten to hang out with both of them a little bit off the court. I when I was living in Virginia, I used to go down to Adam Roberts' house, and
Yeah.
those guys would be training down there every now and then. Um, and then it's kind of funny. Last summer when Adam texted me and he was like, "Hey, are you free to train tomorrow?" And I was like, "Yeah, for sure. I can. What time?" And he was like, "Oh, it's gonna be 10 o'clock at the pier." He's like, "It's gonna be me and you, and then two buddies from the East Coast." He was like, they're a little bit older, but they can still hang. And he didn't tell me who it was. And then I show up to the beach and it's Nick and Phil. And
You did that like right before Manhattan last year as well.
yeah,
He's like, yeah, I got this old buddy coming from out east who just might jump in and train with us a little bit, and it was Nick, and it was when he played with TJ, so it was Nick and TJ. It was pretty
yeah,
funny.
it's so funny. But yeah, Logan, man, I appreciate you hopping on here. It's about time to wrap things up. I loved hearing. I think it's the first time I've heard of a couple of the stories that you told, so I appreciate you sharing. And if you guys don't already follow Logan, I suggest it. I do think that you have a very bright future ahead of you. It's been cool to kind of get here right around the same time as you and meet you as a person and see the success you've already had. And I look forward to seeing what you can do on the court this year.
Yeah, no, thank you, man. It's been cool for me as well, like being so close with you and Mark, see what you guys have been able to do with Better at Beach and the community that you guys have been able to grow. So it's been awesome to watch.
Thanks, man. I'm happy you're a part of it too. So once again, if you guys want to get coached by Logan, if you want to hang out with him, I promise you, despite his calm demeanor here, he's opening up at our camps and having a lot of fun. So it's definitely worth getting to know him. But yeah, Logan, I appreciate you, buddy. If you want to go ahead and hop off, you're more than welcome. And everybody else, I'll stick around and answer a few more questions if you guys have anything. I appreciate you, buddy.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
All right. I'll see you soon. All right. Well, that was pretty cool. Kind of funny. Logan and I are actually going to be roommates here soon, so I'll get to know him a little bit better. But I will go through. I think I saw a couple. What skill set do you wish you focused on first as a high school student? Especially when we're talking about young athletes that are learning how to play the sport. I truly do think it's important to focus on ball control first. If you're talking about females, then this ball control is completely necessary because it's definitely a more ball control driven game. And if you're talking about males, I think we rely too much on athleticism at a young age. I know for me specifically, when I was playing in high school, I was able to bully people just because I was 6'5" in high school and knew a little bit about the sport. But when I got to college, it was a huge headache my first semester. To be honest, I barely made the team, even though I was recruited. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I just didn't have the techniques that I needed in order to succeed at the next level. And those techniques mainly came from my passing and my ball control. So I think don't be scared to spend a ridiculous amount of time on ball control. I know when I was coaching my middle school girls team, which I only saw them for about 9 weeks, and they were already pretty good when I got them. I focused a lot on the ball control aspect of the game because I knew they were going to grow. I knew they were going to get bigger, and when they got bigger, they were going to be able to be stronger with their attacking. But if they didn't have this idea of accuracy first, whether it was passing, setting, or hitting, serving, then they weren't going to know how to control their power. So I think starting with accuracy goals and everything is definitely a good place to start. And then Pam, is it important for younger players to play more than one sport? This is a tough conversation, but I think yes. I think mainly for the burnout. I see a lot of these kids that start playing volleyball at 11 or even younger, 6, because their parents played. And my only worry about that is that once they get to a point where the level of their play actually matters, their heart might not be in it anymore. So I know when I grew up, I spent my young years swimming and playing soccer, which I think helped me a lot with my endurance, my foot movement, or whatever you would call it, my balance, my speed. Then I went on to play football, which kind of helped me with my eye sequence. I was a quarterback. And then I also realized that I did not like getting hit very much. And then by the time I got to volleyball, it was this new sport that just really blew my mind. So I didn't start playing until I was a sophomore in high school, and now I'm 33 years old, and I still love this thing more than I probably should. So I think it is important to. I think it's just important to let kids do what they want. You know, don't force them to stay in one sport. If they want to try soccer, let them try soccer, and then their true passion will come out in the end. Okay, not really seeing any more questions. I'll let anybody, if you have one more last question that you want to pop in here, then you can. The last thing Pam said was, no matter what level you play at, improving the basics, building blocks is a great place to focus. Yeah, I've been having this conversation a lot recently with people who are trying to get better. And unfortunately, especially if you're an adult, then you have these built-in ideas of how you operate as a person. That's mainly mechanically, right? So we start to bring our own touch into the game more than technique. And volleyball is such a technique-heavy sport. That you kind of have to put your ego aside and learn how to be more technical. I look at a lot of players, and if I see that they are struggling in a sense of passing, setting, attacking, most of the time it comes down to the fact that they don't have proper technique. We see people like Adrian Karambula and a lot of Florida players actually who they work on their touch so much that they become very touch dependent, and it can put off some bad technique styles. So if you are a person that's learning, look at our videos, get coaches to look at your technique and become the best technical player you can, because in my opinion it should be about 80% technique, 20% touch. But especially with adults, we start seeing that number switch a little bit. And if you're working on like 50% technique and 50% touch, then that's where when you get tired, that 50% touch is going to start to fail you, but technique won't. So I think whenever you're training, get help, concentrate on your technique, perfect that first, and then you can figure out your own individual style of play. All right. I think that is all we have time for. So hopefully you guys enjoy that conversation with Logan. I have to say, hats off to him. He is a phenomenal human being, a very, very good player, and I would not be surprised to see him in the category of one of the top blockers in the U.S. within the next couple years. So we're definitely lucky to have him on here today, and appreciate you guys tuning in. We will see you guys next week.